I've done Call of Duty 2, that's Big Red one, not the PC version, and Finest Hour, but I must go even further back. Back to where it all began. With Steven Spielberg. In 1997, as Spielberg was wrapping up production on Saving Private Ryan, an idea struck him. He had found a way to spread his interest of World War II with a younger audience, through the means of video games. And so the idea for Medal of Honor was planted. Thanks to his son's love of GoldenEye, Spielberg knew it had to be a first-person shooter.
Good morning, Lieutenant. I'm Colonel Hargrove from the Office of Strategic Services. I'll get right to the point.
And so will I. We play as Lieutenant Jimmy Patterson, an unassuming pilot turned OSS spy. That was the CIA before the CIA. During the D-Day droppings, Jimmy was the only pilot to successfully drop his troops on target, before being forced down by enemy fire. The situation turned desperate when a Wehrmacht patrol found a downed plane with its injured crew. In the turn of events, Jimmy managed to take out half a dozen enemies before help arrived, saving not only himself, but also the lives of his comrades. For his bravery, he was awarded the Medal of Honor and inducted into the OSS, where we are about to receive our first mission. Our first mission is a simple one. The French resistance just gave some confidential information to an American pilot. His plane got shot down when attempting to get the information back to the Allies. It's our mission to locate the plane, find the pilot, recover the information, and make sure it does not fall into enemy hands, or the Germans will have a massive leg up. We get psyched and load into the level. They're manageable, there's one per level, and they only take 20 seconds. But once we're loaded in, we can take our first steps to victory. Okay, maybe not yet. I need to talk about the movement first. A lot of people will excuse this game's control faults under the guise of it being an early FPS. That's not true. This game was released in 1999, well after Quake 1 on the PC, after Alien Trilogy on the PS1, and after Turok on the 64. And even then, that does not explain why in one of the control schemes the right analog stick is not used, in two control schemes 2 face buttons are not used, in one control scheme 3 face buttons are not used, and another one maps fire to square, while aiming stays on the right analog stick. It does not make sense. You have the buttons, why not use them? In the end I went with layout 4, even though it doesn't map L1 to jump, which is where jump should be, but that doesn't matter. Jumping is useless, as is tradition in these kind of games. We do have a massive amount of air control though. Oh, speaking of the actual movement, it's very direct. Jimmy does not need to accelerate to top speed, he just instantly bolts the moment you push the stick. He also doesn't need to decelerate to switch directions for that matter, so the movement feels primitive. Simple. But not bad per se. It does tend to get fucky around edges, vibrating me harder than your mother's nightstand, but for the rest, it's fine. I also like how they handled aiming. You might have noticed there is no reticle on screen. That's because we don't have a reticle when hip firing. We also don't have any auto-aim when hip firing, so hip firing is done completely blind. And only really useful when you're giving an enemy a colonoscopy. To hit further away targets, we need to ADR. That's aim down reticle. Aiming locks our movement in place and gives us more control over our shooting. We still don't gain any auto-aim, however enemy hitboxes are big and our aim slows down when hovering over an enemy. We can also lean when aiming, but Jimmy is no smooth criminal, so it's better to pop and shoot. Otherwise, the shooting actually feels kinda good. Most of the combat also takes place in close to medium range, thank God, so we never need to line up pixel perfect shots. In fact, it isn't even that hard to become a headshot god. If it was not for the ass backwards control schemes, this would have been just about fine. Oh, by the way, just to clarify something, I am using an analog controller, but an authentic PS1 analog controller. Not even I can play this game with the original controller. Okay, time to get back to our mission. Our first mission is to find the plane and logbook. We are taken on a leisurely stroll through the French countryside, casually headshotting people we meet and having turret sections in the streets. Okay, I'm really starting to wonder which game had the first turret section. So behold, this is my personal turret section timeline. From now on, I'm going to put the game on here whenever it has a turret section. The oldest I've reviewed is, this game, actually. Second up is Duke Nukem Land of the Babes. Just a heads up, rail shooters don't count. It has to be a smaller segment in a larger game, but not necessarily a first-person shooter. We eventually locate the captain's logbook and the plane itself, after which we get a new objective to enter the adjacent town in search of the pilot. At the end of each mission, we get an evaluation and a star ranking. Don't worry, there is no incentive to earn a good rating. All you get is a stupid virtual medal and some cheats. The pilot knew there was a French resistance cell in this town, so most likely he tried to meet up with them. And if we're here anyway, we might as well take out 8 Gestapo officers and destroy the radio communications. In the resistance hideout, we find that the pilot has succumbed to his injuries. Did you really think this game was gonna have friendly AI? We grab his briefcase and make a run for it through the dank, dark sewers.
Congratulations on your first mission. You've gotten a rather dramatic introduction to life in the OSS. I have every confidence you're going to make me look like a genius for recruiting you. Your new assignment is a dangerous one. We're sending you back into enemy territory, but this time you're going undercover as a Wehrmacht captain. Now, the Germans have carried over some bad habits from the last World War. One is a love for grossly oversized pieces of artillery. You may have heard of the railguns Dora and Gustav. Well, meet their new sister, Greta. It became fully operational last week. This is the only clear photo we've been able to get because they keep hiding the damn thing. They've spent the last 7 days shooting it at the channel. This was a fuel tender, and this was a hospital ship.
And this was my wife. And this was an orphanage. And this was your mother's house. The stakes are high. Time to pull a sneaky on him. In these stealth sections, we need to sometimes show our papers and acquire new ones when we can't get into a zone. While I go full Bonburger, let's get to the visuals. For a game from 1999 and running on the PlayStation, this looks quite good. Unlike some games that released later, Medal of Honor does not have segmented bodies, which looks really neat. Combine that with full 3D environments and some excellent texture work, and we've got a pretty decent looking game. But sometimes the culling can be a bit aggressive. Sure, it doesn't stack up to anything on the PC at the time, like Unreal, but hey, it runs at a good frame rate, and again, PS1. All the enemies are nicely animated and you react to where they're being shot, most likely inspired by GoldenEye. I really like the style they put into everything. It all feels like it's part of the universe and not the game, if that makes sense. Like the end-level screens looking like reports, the main menu being the OSS office, and all the sub-menus carrying this skeuomorphic design. Saving and loading is done on an inbox. I bet you forgot an inbox is an actual object. Entering cheat codes is done on an Enigma machine, and changing the controls on a radio. Good stuff. Back to the story. We sneak cleanly through the rail station, switch the Greta's tracks, and get punished with 1 star. Fucking bullshit. But this was the training for the real stealth mission. We need to sneak, blast our way through the rail yard, taking out the Greta's reserve engine and procuring a shipping manifest before giving chase to Thomas' steam engine. I'm more of a cherry popper. Fuck, that's a terrible joke. After a little trek through a canyon and shooting some people in the ass, we find the fat lady herself.
Welcome back, Lieutenant. Unfortunately, you won't have much time to rest before you head out on your new mission. This time, your destination is inside Germany. We're sending you to the Dachsmark submarine facility in Bremen, where they're building a new U-boat prototype that dwarfs anything we've seen before.
And I'll make sure it will never be seen since. We start off undercover on the German merchant vessel the Wolfram. This is our ticket into Germany. The boat will stop at the harbor of Bremen and unload some supplies. This is the port where we get off. But since we're here on the largest ship in the German merchant fleet, we might as well sink it by using a giant spanner on the prop shaft. We just need to sneak around and silently acquire the items.
Show me your papers.
Here you go, sir.
Show me your papers.
Look here, buddy.
You're Jimmy Patterson.
Oh, you've got to be shitting me. You just stepped the heads, you stupid. After making our way off the boat and canonically shitting our pants, we need to head over the docks to the U-boat production facility. So, have you heard this game's audio? The audio in this game is very good, especially the ambiance. It can often add so much to a level. The crickets chirping and water flowing in the town. The thumping of Greta as we make our way to the canyon. Or the PA system on the boat. It adds a lot to a level, making them feel more alive or unalive than they really are. As for the music, okay, let's be honest. If I heard this music without knowing it's from Medal of Honor, I would call it bland. But it's good to remember that this was one of the earliest games to have an orchestral soundtrack, before it became the standard in the AAA space. If some of those tracks sound familiar, they should. It was composed by Michael Giacchino, who also composed the first Call of Duty, but, more importantly for me, Call of Duty Finest Hour. My beloved. The sound effects sound crisp, with some good plump gun sounds and stellar voice acting. For our main briefings, we have the warm voice of William Morgan Shepherd, who you know from I My Me Strawberry Eggs, of course.
I'm looking forward to seeing the fruits of your female education technique.
Oh yeah, and the narrator for Civ 5.
It is well that war is so terrible. Oh, we should grow too fond of it.
And Kai Wolf, who I know from Call of Duty Finest Hour. I think he did the German voices.
Da kommen Sie! Feindliche Spezialeinheit!
In the U-boat facility, we secure the plans and board the U-boat we're after, which then leaves out to sea. But don't think this mission is over. No, no, no! We still need to sabotage the boat from the inside out. As we fight through... Oh, please fix your Z buffer before taking a piss, sir. Savages, I tell you.
This is the latest reconnaissance from the Siegfried Line. Now that Montgomery's attempt at a shortcut has failed, we're going to have to get through Germany the hard way. This is the Moselle River near Metz. And this is Fort Schmerzen, which is proving to be one tough nut to crack. Thick concrete.
A German bunker is holding out inside of captured territory called Schmerzen. The Allies have long since surrounded the place. This is not just any hole in the ground. This is a German-made hole in the ground. So of course it stretches deep underground and is near impenetrable. But even being surrounded, the guard stationed inside refuse to surrender. The higher-ups suspect that the Germans are planning something inside, so we are tasked with finding out. First, we need to find a way into the fort. Luckily, our friend in the French resistance spent some time working there, and knows of a secret hatch into the bunker. We need to find the crowbar she left us in front of 2 machine gun nests. Thank you. The difficulty is also starting to ramp up now. Enemies are finally using grenades. Picking up the piss-soaked keys and heading further into the facility, we find out what the Germans were up to. They were secretly making mustard gas. What's with the Germans and gas?
Let's give them a taste of their own medicine!
After 10,000 years, I'm free! It's time to conquer Earth!
Mighty morphing mustard gas!
I've got good news and bad news for you, Lieutenant. The good news is that your security clearance has been elevated. The bad news is that we're sending you to Norway in the middle of winter. This all has to do with Germany's attempt to build something called an atomic bomb.
To make these atomic bombs, they need 2 H2O, which goes by the trivial name of heavy water. Unlike regular H2O, which uses the more common hydrogen 1, heavy water consists of hydrogen 2. Hydrogen 2, unlike its hydrogen 1 cousin, has a neutron at its nucleus. Thanks to this property, it's less able to absorb the radicals produced by nuclear fission, which slows down the rate at which fission occurs. I don't know the rest, my knowledge kind of stops at the chemistry part. Not that I'm a nerd or anything. No, I'm based and drug-pilled. After being told that we were in the hospital from our last escapades, we should have some severe edema. We make our way into the hydroelectric plant and start shutting off the power. Heading into the heavy water production plant, destroying all their research, since the Allies already have that covered, and securing the shipping manifest, we make a break for the exit for a clean extraction. Hallelujah! Eat shit, Armorines! Somebody did it right before you were even released. It seems a shipment of heavy water was already loaded onto a boat and is about to be shipped out. But they forgot they're facing Jimmy, that side objective is my objective, Patterson. And we go above and beyond the Call of Duty.
Welcome back, Patterson. Because time is of the essence for this next mission. We're sending you to the Steinberg salt mine, located just outside of the Austrian village of Alt-Aussee. The Third Reich has used the mine as its all-purpose safety deposit box, creating a vast cache of paintings and sculpture.
The Germans in the last mission were starting to up their arms. Single-fire weapons are getting replaced with MP40s, and they're wielding a new weapon called the Panzerschreck. But now that we've made a little pit stop at the HQ, they've upped their arsenal with a bazooka. Let's see what Shrek's penis can do. We are currently operating ahead of the main army, and it could take a while before they catch up. To make their lives a bit easier, we're going to weaken the German infrastructure. Due to the remote location of the mine, they must rely on petrol generators for their power. These are too heavily guarded for a direct assault, but their petrol tanks aren't. We need to blow up these tanks and make sure we don't get blown up before that. An objective which I fail. Yeah, that was my first death. This game isn't very hard, but this is a little spike in difficulty. Making our way into the mine, we defuse some bombs and appreciate the art we just saved.
This war is going to end soon.
Thank God. Our last mission takes us to a V2 rocket facility. The V2 rocket was the world's first long-range guided ballistic missile and first artificial object in space. Fun fact. At this point in time, there was no way of defending against these missiles, and they would often strike without any warning. Due to their high altitude and traveling at 3 times the speed of sound, it was impossible to shoot them down. So one of the first things the Allies did during the invasion was raiding V2 facilities. In the facility, our objectives are simple. Locate the non-secret schematics, locate the top secret list of scientists labeled top secret, to know who we need to recruit after the war, and sabotage the rocket by setting its gimbal to fly straight up and come crashing right back down.
General Eisenhower informs me that the forces of Germany have surrendered to the United Nations. The flags of freedom fly all over Europe.
Got to love a shitty ending. Medal of Honor was a strong start of a franchise which is still around. Let's keep it in limbo. The last game was a VR title with a mixed reception, and the one 8 years prior was a poorly received modern military shooter, which keeps saying, no really, warfighter is a word. Honestly, I hate this phrase since I think good games were always good, but this one has aged well. Other than the control schemes being cooked up by the Special Needs Committee, it's like a less cinematic early COD. Which makes sense, as the franchise moved on, it started to include more of these cinematic elements. And after a scrappy studio of modders made Allied Assault, they would take that Medal of Honor template, found a new studio under Activision called Infinity Ward, and make Call of Duty, a franchise that would overshadow Medal of Honor. But more importantly, the game did its job. It got me to do research about World War II and told me some stuff I didn't know in a fun package. Go play it. The next game is gonna be a PS2 beat 'em up classic. Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. Huh? Oh, my ass!